You know, we have been planning this exhibit for a very long time, and when we first started planning it, it was pre-COVID, and so we had this big, all these wonderful opening plans, and one by one, we scratched them and scratched them and scratched them. But we are here, we are live, and we're having an opening anyway, so I'm pretty happy about that. And another person I want to give a monster shout out to, and I'd like him to wave, Jacob Muldowney. Jacob, oh Jacob, come in here. Jacob is the art professor here at Western Wyoming. You're in his house. This is his space. And those of you who have been around for gallery presentations before know that you don't get this space very easily. But Jacob has been wonderful. He not only welcomed us into this beautiful gallery, but did some wonderful help with hanging the pictures and just being an all-around wonderful person to work with. I could hardly wait for the next one. See, we're going to do it again, Jacob. I just thought I'd toss that in. And then Eric Delora, who's lurking in the hallway. Get in here, Eric. in. Eric is a professor of theater here at the college, and between Eric and Jacob, they did everything. I just stand up here and talk. They're the ones that did everything. So would you please give them a really big hand? And in case you were wondering which one was the theater guy, yeah, the one that did the big bow, yes. So, but I can't have two finer friends to work with, and we just thank them so much. And we thank all of you for coming out and being here. I'm not going to say much about the show. I'm not going to say a whole lot about our partners or what went into putting this on, because Paul Gordon will be telling us all of that. But I do want to just thank all of you so very much and tell you of a couple of partners who are here. One who he may have actually, oh no, he didn't run away. I told him to at least wave. I wasn't sure he was going to, but a big portion of this exhibit was funded by the Foundation for the Episcopal Diocese of Wyoming, and the director of the foundation, who drove all the way down here from Cody, Press Stevens. And Press said, don't introduce me. I didn't do anything. He, writes pretty nice checks. So we're just absolutely thrilled that Press could be down here with us. With the Diocese of Wyoming, and I can't even remember her title now because it's cool. It's the Canon for Mission, Outreach, and Evangelism. The Reverend Bobby Fitzhugh from the Diocese of Wyoming. And Bobby is a very recently appointed canon, and I remember when I first asked what a canon was, and I was told it's a really big gun. So she's a really big gun. We're just thrilled that she is here and could be a part of us. And in just a moment here, I'm going to turn things over to Wyoming Humanities, who's a group really near and really dear to my heart. I have the great pleasure of chairing the board of directors at this point in time, and the reason I love it so much is, number one, we get to do cool things like this, but number two, we get to do cool things with two of the most amazing people you will ever meet. She's not going to speak, but she's been practicing her wave. The Executive Director Emeritus of Wyoming Humanities, Shannon Smith. Shannon has the singular honor of living in Nebraska, but she came here anyway for this. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce to you the executive director. We worked really hard to get him, and we stole him from another statewide organization, and we're proud of it. Please welcome the executive director of Wyoming Humanities, Sean Reese.
Well, thank you very much, Bernie, and thank you for this opportunity. particularly because we've played such a small role in this. There have been so many partners who have acted and worked hard to put this together. We're glad to play a small role in this. I'm also glad to be able to remove my mask in a socially distanced way so you can see me smiling, and I feel like I'm smiling for 3 reasons. I'm smiling because I get to see new and old friends. I get to see people gathering, a sense of normalcy for the first time in a long while around something that is enriching and provoking and makes us all think. And the 3rd reason I'm smiling is because I'm in Rock Springs. And I love Rock Springs. My father and my grandmother are from Rock Springs, and I grew up in Cheyenne, but grew up with stories of Rock Springs. Grew up with the Rock Springs cuisine, an Irish grandmother who cooked Slavic and Greek and Italian food, which I thought was Irish food, but it was Rock Springs food. And the way I've thought about this exhibit, out of one many, is a bit like an hourglass. Thinking about out of many one. My grandmother and her family, she was actually born on the way from Ireland to Rock Springs, and they settled here to mine coal with all of the other different nationalities. And they welcomed the stranger, and they were pilgrims themselves, and they had to find a sense of oneness. And out of many nationalities, they became one. They became Rock Springs. So out of many nationalities became a single community, Rock Springs. And that permeated my family lineage to generations that never lived in Rock Springs. We feel part of one. And this exhibit then is at the fulcrum of the hourglass, and out of one many. And that's an important message for us all to think about. This morning, after I told my daughter I was coming to Rock Springs to this exhibit, she sent me some tweets within the context of the Stop Asian Hate. And there was one text in particular, which was a video that was about how did it all start. And what they started with in that video was the Chinese Massacre in 1885. And my initial thought was, that is not us. That is not us. But upon reflection, it is us. It is part of our shared memory. It is something that we need to understand. And I think that art and discussions and the different perspectives that can find a common denominator that brings us together will help us understand our identity in a different way from within and without. So thank you very much for coming out on a snowy night. It's so great to see people coming together again. It's so great to see something as wonderful as this exhibit. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
What Sean is way too polite to tell you, I went to school with his father. We were both child prodigies, of course. But welcome, and that really is who Rock Springs is. We are a melting pot. We are the city of 56 nationalities. And here to officially welcome you to the city of Rock Springs that we're so very proud of is the past president of the Rock Springs City Council, Tim Savage.
Well, thank you. I think a lot of you guys know me. I'm a person of few words, big heart. Very proud to, this is my, what was that?
I said that's why you were the president.
Yeah, that's exactly why. And I forgot what I was going to say. When Dorothy and I got married, we wouldn't have been able to get married in 1970 because I'm of Finnish descent, and Finnish people were considered Mongoloids and weren't allowed to marry the uppity Irish at that time. So Luckily, things have changed. But on behalf of the mayor and the city council, we are so proud and happy to have this exhibit and to see all of you out here today. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so very much, Tim. We so appreciate it. And now it's time for you to hear more about this amazing exhibit. Over on the table where Tim is standing, there are some books, some guidebooks to the exhibition. So if you don't have one, before you start looking at the art, be sure you grab one, because it gives you some wonderful history and some wonderful background about the artists. But it is my very great honor to first introduce to you a wonderful, in the Episcopal Diocese of Wyoming world, she's our new First Lady. This is Lynn Chandler. She's the wife of our new bishop. Would you please, please make Lynn welcome? And Lynn is an amazing musician in her own right, and we're just so honored and proud to have her with us. And we're particularly proud to welcome actually the founding president of Caravan, who is bringing you this exhibit in cooperation with these other folks. But the founding president, when I first met him, he was living in Cairo. More recently, he was in Qatar, and now he is the 10th bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Wyoming, and we're so proud. The Right Reverend Paul Gordon Chandler.
Good evening. It's a real privilege to welcome you all to the opening of this artistic initiative, Abraham Out of One Many. I want to thank you for coming out, and I want to thank you on behalf of the Episcopal Church in Wyoming, and of course, as well on Caravan's part. One of the things when you have an opening for an art gallery or an art exhibition, you always wonder who is going to show up. And so I'm glad some of you have showed up, and it's a real privilege to have you here. It's a special privilege for me as well to be back in Rock Springs. The first time I was in Rock Springs was in 2016 for another exhibition, which was kind of just down the hallway there, where we had 47 artists involved of Christian, Muslim, and Jewish descent, and all of them coming from the Middle East, and it was called The Bridge. And in a sense, it's a similar theme as tonight, and that toured the state. And one of the reasons that exhibition was brought to Wyoming is that when it opened in Paris, someone in Paris said, "Do you know that Wyoming is the most anti-Middle Eastern, anti-Arab state in the United States?" So we thought, well, that's interesting. And so we said, let's bring it here. I've got to tell you, we proved them wrong in so many ways. And the Arab and Jewish artists that we brought here for that exhibition were embraced wholeheartedly and are dying to want to come back to Wyoming. So thank you for this special opportunity of actually allowing another exhibition for Caravan to be here. I think you would agree, and of course, Sean, you just brought up what's happening with our Asian American populace in the United States, but today's climate of increasing prejudice and stereotyping, certainly in the West, has brought about what some are calling a new tribalism, which often leads, of course, to a dehumanizing of the other, whether it's in worldviews or words or actions. And the issue, I think, has become all the more important now because it's actually entered into the political discourse on both sides of the Atlantic, in North America and in the United States. A few nights ago, we were somewhere where it was steeped in that, in our own state. And I think it's vital, more than ever, that this kind of, how would I play it, this intensification of misrepresentation and misunderstanding not become the new norm. And it's very easy for it to become the new norm. This Abraham exhibition, Out of One Many, is really an artistic response to that, to today's climate of increasing prejudice, stereotyping, discrimination, whether related to color or faith, tradition, or culture, you name it, including, and you should see the statistics, quite a rise in anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim sentiment. Like never before, I think all of this needs to be counteracted by what I would call creative initiatives that are based on our similarities and certainly on what we hold in common. I think more than ever, creative demonstrations of dialogue are needed more than ever. And that's what we're doing this evening, reminding us, and I'll share a little bit about this, we're Christians, Muslims, and Jews, what we have in common, that we all trace our lineage to the same person, this figure of Abraham. Abraham has certainly been a figure that has captured the imagination of artists throughout the centuries, from Caravaggio to Rembrandt to William Blake to James Tissot to Marc Chagall, of course, in the last century, and of course of literature, from Philo to Milton to William Faulkner. And more importantly, Abraham in the Christian tradition, Ibrahim in the Islamic tradition, or Avraham in the Jewish tradition, is the most jointly beloved figure by all of those monotheistic faiths, which are Christians, Muslims, Druze, and Jews, as well as some of the smaller faiths like the Yazidi in Iraq. All see themselves as proud descendants of this man whom today you would call an Iraqi. Pope Francis actually just visited, as you may have seen, Iraq, and he went to where Abraham is from. And on each section here, you'll find actually a cloak that's been glued in from a shepherd in that Abraham was. Abraham is without doubt one of the most unifying figures that we currently have in today's discord and misunderstanding. And he's referred to as the father of us all, as are Hagar and Sarah, the mother of us all. And in each of these three faith traditions, whose followers, of course, they all call themselves children of Abraham, the figure of Abraham is seen as this model, this wonderful example of embracing the other, whomever the other is, and of welcoming the stranger into our midst. And in this sense, when you think about it, even though we kind of often view him as this religious figure, he's so much more than that, because he really becomes, if you look at the principles of his life, a guide for all of us on what it means for cultural and religious or ethnic backgrounds to live in harmony together. This timely exhibition, titled Abraham Out of One Many, plays off of that Latin motto, E pluribus unum, which is on the presidential seal, of course, in our country, out of many, one. And it actually focuses in on what we can learn from Abraham about living together in a more harmonious way. And for this exhibition, as each of those traditions, Christians, Muslims, and Jews, came out of the Middle East, we invited three celebrated Middle Eastern artists from those traditions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, to come and produce 5 paintings each about, in a sense, bringing Abraham's life to canvas for us, serving as a guide toward creating cultures of peace and of harmony and of justice and of healing, perhaps as we've never needed before. The artists are, and they go in this order, so there are 5 sections here, okay, and they go in this order. Sinan Hussein, who comes from a Muslim background, he's always the one on your left. He's from a Shia Muslim background, which of course Iran is largely known for. You have Qais Al Sindy, who comes from the ancient Chaldean Assyrian church, which traced their heritage back to what were called the Nestorians. These were among the first followers of Christ who ended up all the way to China. And you can go to China today and see pagodas in the typical pagoda system that are actually Christian pagodas that were started in the first several centuries by the Nestorians. And then you've got Shai Azoulay. Shai Azoulay is an Israeli Jewish artist. He's one of the most well-known artists in Israel. He comes from the Orthodox Jewish tradition, very conservative. Interestingly, Sinan Hussein, just to give you an idea of the context, just by being in this exhibition, has lost a number of friends because he's in this exhibition with Shai Azoulay, an Israeli. That's the state of our world so often. All of them are award-winning artists, highly regarded in international art circles. They've sold at Christie's and Sotheby's and other large auction houses. But the question really is, what can Abraham teach us toward freeing our world from sectarian strife? That's the answer this exhibition tries to provide. The exhibition highlights 5 themes related to Abraham's life that have profound implications on how we can live harmoniously together as descendants of a shared heritage. The 5 themes, and they go in this order, are first, living as a pilgrim. Abraham was a wanderer, always journeying. He never arrived. And when you're journeying to get wherever you're going, you have to be open to asking others, even the stranger, for directions and for assistance on your own journey. So it's a worldview, a mindset. Then you have welcoming the stranger over here, which Abraham models and exemplifies so beautifully in the stories of his life. Here you've got sacrificial love, which is required, of course, if we are to live together harmoniously. Here you have compassion. Abraham, interestingly, in all 3 traditions, is known as the compassionate one. And then finally, here, it's a broader one. We titled it Friend of God, because our Jewish and Muslim brothers and sisters term Abraham in that way, friend of God. But when you're a friend of God, it means you're a friend of everything God loves, which of course is humanity, but it also means the environment and all of creation and animal life, etc. And so it's a larger worldview that one has in that regard. I really would encourage you to pick up one of those discussion and dialogue artwork booklets, because what's critical for these paintings are those artist statements under each, where they bring them to life and describe what they're trying to portray and communicate within that. The exhibition premiered its 24-month global tour in Rome at the historic Episcopal Church, St. Paul's, outside the walls, in April of May 2019. And then it was showcased in Paris at the American Cathedral there in June, July of 2019. And then that summer it went to Edinburgh, Scotland in August for the Festival Fringe, which is the largest art festival in the world. And then it started touring the U.S., and so far it's been in Omaha, Boston, Jacksonville, Houston. These others were canceled, but it should have already been there before being here today. Atlanta, Reno, Washington, D.C. at National Cathedral, and Chicago. But because of COVID-19, it had to be canceled. Now we're in Wyoming, and after Wyoming, it goes to Hartford, Connecticut. As this exhibition travels, it takes with it this fundamental message of interreligious and intercultural harmony. It's really serving almost, if you will, as this visual starting point on which to build a society that inherently respects the other and respects diversity above all things, which, thankfully, Rock Springs is known for, where we can all live and work together harmoniously for a purpose, which is jointly enhancing our communities. Throughout the tour, and by the way, here in Wyoming, it begins here, and then it goes to Laramie. It'll be at St. Matthew's Cathedral in Laramie, and then it goes to Lander, where it will be at the Fremont County Pioneer Museum. And throughout the tour, there's an array of programming that's being developed for each site, and that encourages and stimulates dialogue and discussion and further understanding related to this theme as to what can we learn in our own context from these principles of how to live together. Here in Rock Springs, you've got 2 events on March 30 and March 31st with this marvelous speaker, Bakhtash Ahadi, who's from Afghanistan originally. He'll be coming and giving one live presentation and then another one on a webinar. And there's, I think, a poster there near the table that gives you some context. And I'd really encourage you to participate in that. And then there's a whole other array of programming coming out of Laramie and in Lander as well. Behind all of this, though, is the belief that art is a universal language that has the ability to dissolve the differences that divide us. And we have found, and we've had exhibitions all over the world, we have found that art can be one of the most effective mediums to enhance understanding, to bring about respect, to enable sharing, and certainly to deepen friendships between those that come from very different backgrounds, whether it be culturally or religiously or their ethnicity, etc. As the dynamic Tunisian Minister of Culture, Latifa Lakhtar, says, creativity is the greatest way to approach our battle against those people who would seek to destroy even the most elementary principles of life. And the vision for Caravan, behind putting exhibitions like this together, and Caravan is essentially a peace-building NGO that uses the arts to bridge between peoples of different backgrounds. The exhibition, the whole vision of it started in Cairo, Egypt in 2009, the year before I actually first came to Wyoming in 2010. And it's resulted in exhibitions around the world with premier artists using the arts for transformational purposes. And one can ask, all right, here we are in an exhibition. Why is art so effective? Well, in addition to having, and I think we all agree, art has a transcendent dimension to it. One of the secrets of using the medium of the arts in peace building or in bridge building, especially in the intercultural and the interreligious arena, and now in the interpolitical arena in our country as well, is that art is indirect in its approach to addressing often very difficult and sensitive and challenging subjects. It's like you're almost addressing the subject under the table. And so those all too often defensive walls that go up don't go up. The other thing I would say about it, in many ways, is that it becomes an encounter point, bringing people together that would not normally come together. And that's kind of what we're doing tonight in different ways. And within this, often we gain insights into the other. I mean, I'm telling you, when this exhibition opened in Rome, we brought the Israeli embassy in, we brought the Vatican, we brought the Shia imam. Never in their world, in their mind, did they ever think they would be in the same room together and sharing and endorsing the same thing. And out of it, that imam and the cardinal who's responsible for interfaith dialogue have become close, close friends, but having met at this exhibition that is around you right now. Certainly the power of creativity counteracts the demonization of the other. And I've got to tell you, in many ways, we feel artists lead the way. Because of their embrace of greater tolerance than others, they're natural change agents in helping us see and think differently about each other. Art helps us put ourselves in the other's shoes. And in this sense, looking through the lens of Abraham's life, this exhibition has the primary objective of helping us see the other with fresh eyes. Even if we already look kindly on them, it's critical that we understand more. I like to say that our day calls for a whole new kind of movement. Not of belief, certainly not of religious unity, but simply one that builds on what we hold in common. Very basic. The way I like to look at it is we should build on the dark side of the moon. What do I mean by that? Well, a crescent in the sky. When you see a moon's crescent, we can only see that part of the moon because of the reflection. But whenever you see a crescent, it means the majority of the moon is dark. Now, a crescent, of course, is the Islamic symbol of faith. And for the sake of an illustration, I would say that crescent, that little sliver, is what we have different between ourselves and the other, whomever the other is, especially Christians, Muslims, and Jews. But the dark side of the moon is everything we have in common. And the challenge for us is to build our relationships with the other on the dark side of the moon, a la Pink Floyd, if you remember that, in many ways. But we're so often blinded by that constant illumination of our differences, and that's very much what's happening in our country right now, that we often can't see all that we have in common. It's the early 20th century Lebanese poet, artist, and mystic Khalil Gibran, and many of you perhaps remember his book, The Prophet, and he so profoundly bridged East and West. He beautifully said, "Your neighbor is your other self dwelling behind a wall. In understanding, all walls fall down." And then he goes on to say these insightful words, "I love you when you bow in your mosque and when you kneel in your temple or when you pray in your church. For you and I are children of one religion, and that is God's Spirit." I thought I would close with two thoughts from different artists that I think are very apropos at this time. The first is from Leonard Bernstein. We all remember him, the renowned late Jewish composer, conductor, and he highlights the transformative power of art. The point is, art never stopped a war. That was never its function. Art cannot change events, but it can change people. And it can affect people so that they are changed and then act in a way that may affect the course of events by the way they behave and the way they think. And secondly, perhaps no words better resonate, actually, with the spirit of this exhibition than the words of that profound Dutch artist, Vincent Van Gogh. Vincent Van Gogh. He wrote, "The more I think it over, the more I feel there is nothing more truly artistic than to love people." I think it comes down to that. Thank you for being here, and I encourage you to really look through and read those artist statements because that really brings it to life. And it's our joy to be hosting you here tonight, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul Gordon. And you said so eloquently exactly what our purpose is and what we're trying to accomplish as human beings. So do please take some time, pick up a guidebook, look at the art, and when you have eaten and drunk your fill of art, come down to the Broadway Theater, where we actually do have food and drinks. So please come and join us down at the Broadway. There are some little Middle Eastern snacks that have been catered by Eve's Restaurant and some drinks to wash them down with. And there will be wonderful music by our very own Christy Lev. So please take your time, enjoy the art, and think about all these wonderful, wonderful works and what has gone in to making us all one, and out of one, there are all of us. Enjoy. Thank you so much. We'll see you here, and then we hope to see you all down at the Broadway Theater. Thanks again.